Hey Flosstube friends, welcome back. In my previous videos, I talked about how I was really interested in turning my daughter's artwork into a cross-stitch piece. And so in my part one of making Meda, I tried using a artwork to pattern cross-stitch converter, floss cross. And I realized very quickly it wasn't going to work out for what I want to do. I'd have to really scale it up to get the level of detail I was interested in. And my inspiration is all the beautiful memorabilia pieces that are out there that I thought I'd love to do that with something of hers. So when that didn't work out, I decided instead of spending all that time trying to manually fix all the pattern squares that weren't quite right, I thought, what happens if I just freestyle it? So what if I trace it onto fabric and then just go on this cross-stitching adventure and see how that turns out. So that's where I'm at. And I wanted to capture the process. Now, I've had a few learning curve glitches with equipment and trying to figure out how to just record all of this and show the process. So my early attempts didn't quite work out, but I really want to capture this for anybody else who's interested in trying to do something similar. And so I decided to kind of retrace my steps a little bit. And so I want to show you what that looks like. How do you actually go about getting the pattern onto the fabric? And, what are the steps involved with that? So that's where we're going next. So let me show you what that looks like. So I printed out my image onto a legal size piece of paper. I actually didn't have legal size, so I just taped a couple of regular photocopy pages together, threw it through the printer, and printed off because it was the size I was after. About an 8.5 by 13 was what I wanted. And I taped it onto a nice bright sunny window. You can see a lot of the snow that we got in the background there. And then I taped a fresh piece of paper over top of it and just started to trace it out with a pencil. Sorry about all the times I got in the way of the picture there. I'm still learning how to record this stuff. I had originally decided to trace this onto grid paper, not really knowing exactly what I was going to do with it afterwards, if I had to match up the squares or something like that. So I did originally go to stitchpoint.com and printed off some chart size paper. You can actually pick out what count you want. So I chose a 15 count, knowing that that would be the fabric that I would be using. So I just decided to trace it all with pencil first and just see how that looked. And in the end, I was pretty satisfied with how the picture came out. So to compare to the original image, this is what the outline would look like. Obviously, this would have been a little bit easier if I had the outline instead to start with. And I realized that I was having difficulty seeing the darker parts, the dark lines on top of the darker parts of the picture. So I just put it back up on the window and went back around and just fixed the bits that I was missing. And then I realized it needed to be a lot darker to go behind the fabric so I could see it really well. So I just went back over it with a black gel pen. This gave me a nice crisp line in the background of the fabric that I could see a lot better. I could see the pattern a lot better through. And then I was ready to trace it onto the fabric. So I taped the outline up onto the window and then just the fabric over top of it. And I used a water-soluble pen to trace it. Now, the first attempt was terrible. I could hardly see the image. It wasn't a good pen. So I washed it out, dried it, pressed it, and tried a different pen. And my second pen was a lot better. So I just found a water-soluble pen just off of Amazon. I know that there's the Dritz pen out there. That's good. The other thing that I did was I talked about in my previous video about making Q-snaps. So Darvana Lee Designs, she did a great video with her husband Brandon on how to make them. And what you basically use is just 1/2 inch PVC pipe, and you cut your lengths to size for whatever size project you want to make. Now, if you don't have tools like, you know, you don't have like a skill saw or something like that to cut it, there are other things that you can use. You can use things like a little pipe cutter, and basically how that works is you put it you put it around your pipe, you loosen it up, you push it on, and then you tighten it, and then once you've got it nice and tight, you pull it around. Okay, and then you tighten it again, and you keep doing that. So if you're not comfortable with, like, you know, big scary saws and things like that, but you do want to do this process, you can get yourself a little pipe cutter piece to do that. Other things are, you could have like a little hacksaw blade or a hacksaw if you've got that. So you can cut your pieces to length. And then you put them together with just they're just basic plumbing supplies. You can get this at like any Home Depot or Lowe's or any of those places. So I had done exactly that. I had gotten my elbow pieces and I cut my pieces, and I just sand the edges a little bit, just for me, so that they weren't rough. And I give it a good scrub as well. And then you just put your elbow pieces on each end, and you connect your and you start connecting your frame pieces together, and they fit really nicely, nice and snug. Okay. And so the benefit of this is you can cut to any size you want, any size project. You can have multiples, and it's very inexpensive. The elbows, four elbows and a length of pipe, I think were something like 12. It was under 20 bucks, 12 bucks or something like that. And then the last thing you'll need are the U-clips. So you can, again, these are a type of supply. I got mine, I'm in Canada, so I went to, so I just went to Lee Valley Tool, and I got a package of these, and it was so much less expensive than buying the Q-snaps online. So then I had my frame and ready to go. I put my fabric into it, and then the next thing was I needed my floss to get started stitching. So the next step was going to the store and picking out all the floss colors. So this is actually where I found the floss cross exercise came in handy, because it gave me my suggested list of colors. So I printed that out. I took that with me to Michael's, which is where I go to get my floss. My DMC is what I use. So I took that with me, and I took my picture with me. And what I did was I went and I picked out all the colors that were on the list, and I laid them out on the design and decided, you know, how closely do they match? Am I happy with them? And that was great because, for example, like I wasn't keen on the gold. It was a little sort of a muddy brown color. I thought I could do better. So it gave me a chance to kind of, you know, pick and choose which ones I wanted. So that's what I did. And then I brought them home and I sat down and kind of of mapped them out and figured out what was I going to use for each section. So although the list came in handy, what I really needed was to just jot out a list of all the colors I want to use and where. So as I looked at the picture, what I realized was there were areas of shading. So I would probably need a couple of colors in different sections. So I started basically at the top of the image and worked my way down. And so I ended up really just jotting out a list. So I've got here from the top down to the bottom, the different parts of the body, starting with the hair and the antlers, coming into the forehead and the face and that kind of thing. And I went back and forth with a few and scratched them out ultimately. And then just on the back, you know, continuing on with everything. So I knew then what I had, what my supplies were, and how I would go from there. The one thing that was a little bit different for me was I wanted to introduce a little bit of sparkle into it. So I did pick up the DMC Brights. I got the white one, and it's a couple of things about it. It's not as sparkly and cool as some of the other colors, the white, but I really wanted to have a little bit of a sparkle effect in the hair. So I thought I would start with that. But if any of you have stitched with this stuff, oh boy, it will, if you can see this, it will fray up on you really quickly. So you really like can't have, you know, big lengths. It's also very, it's rough. It's kind of like it's like a polyester, I guess, is probably what it's made out of. So it will catch a little bit. And in hindsight, I think I probably would have been better to go like, try and break it down to fewer strands, or yeah, probably fewer strands would have been a bit better. But in the end, it was okay. And I was happy enough with the effect. It did look different than the white of like the blouse, for example. So that was kind of a neat thing to try. And I realized I would be going back for other things. Like I thought, you know, I'd like to have some like gold thread to like stitch over the areas of like the top of the staff where the moon is. And I was thinking also in the armor, that kind of thing. So I thought I wouldn't mind working with something like that. So I did end up going back, and I got the gold. I think it's DMC. I think it's called Diamond. I don't know if you can see that on there. But this is a very nice, I actually do like stitching with this. I stitched with the regular DMC, but then I kind of went back over it, and I was able to add in a bit of glitter. In the staff itself, I used the gold. So, so very happy with how I was able to kind of select some color choices that I thought would work, and then just, you know, start stitching it kind of freestyle. So let me show you where my starting point was and where I'm at. So here she is in her DIY Q-snap frame, all ready to start stitching. And I started with her hair and antlers, and just working my way down from section to section. And as you can see, back stitching is everything. And you can see some of the gold there. So that's what I'm doing now, and I'm going to just keep stitching the pattern using the picture as my guide, and deciding where maybe some of the shading color will go and some of the slightly lighter color in the different sections. I want to come back and add in some bling, so some beading at some point, which will be a little bit new to me. I haven't done that before. And then eventually I want to do something with the background. So I'm really keen on some of the patterns that have like these, you know, beautiful swirls and things like that in the background, or possibly like a leaf frame around it or that kind of thing. So I haven't worked that part out. I'm just taking this project in pieces and seeing where it leads me to. And so far I'm happy with how it's going. So stay tuned for further updates of Meda and how are we doing with it in future episodes. If you like the content I've been producing, let me know in the comments if you are interested in this process, or, you know, if you want to, you know, see some of these steps, or if you're interested in how I'm dealing with the stitching. I am discovering that it's not so straightforward, so you have to be a bit flexible. If you're interested in that, I can dive in a little bit deeper about how I'm dealing with it. So if you like what I've been doing, if you don't mind hitting the like button and maybe subscribe, I will put out more videos. I don't know what my schedule will be. I'm just making them as I go. So stay tuned for more. And thank you very much for your kindness in the comments. You have just been so very welcoming and encouraging. And I love when people can relate to some of the things that I go through on this adventure, and some of the things that I've done. And I did see a lot of interest in some of my mom's work, so I do plan on tackling that as well, and probably some framing at some point. These wonderful pieces that I've got ready to go, I need to get them up on the wall, right? We all need to get them up on the wall and out of the closet. So thanks a lot, and I'll see you guys again.